His question stopped me in my tracks. It wasn't what I expected, not at all. I stepped closer, my curiosity ignited. What exactly are you getting at, Daniel? He exhaled slowly, deliberately, his gaze searching for the words that had been weighing on him. I've been thinking about everything you've given up for me, all the ways you've been my anchor, and it hit me, something I should have realized years ago. I never really acknowledged it, I just took it for granted, you know? My chest tightened. A lump formed in my throat, but I couldn't find the words. Daniel, you don't owe me gratitude. I'm your mom. That's what we do. But he shook his head, and I saw something shift in his eyes. That's exactly what I'm talking about, Mom. You don't see it. I've been coasting through life, taking the easy path, and I need to face that. I can't keep going like this. Something has to change. I'm not the person I want to be. My breath caught. In nearly 20 years of raising him, I'd never seen Daniel like this. So raw, so vulnerable, so real. There was something deeper in his words, something that felt like, I'm not sure you'll understand this yet, but what I'm really trying to say is this. We both need to grow, separately, in our own ways. The realization hit me like a tidal wave. Everything had shifted in that single moment. What Daniel was saying wasn't just about his journey. It was about mine too. And that understanding? That was only the beginning of something much bigger. When the masks come off, the evening settled into a deep quiet, the kind of stillness that hums with possibility, as if the world itself was holding its breath. I stayed in Daniel's room long after that first conversation, unsure how to break the silence. There was so much we'd left unsaid over the years, like two puzzle pieces that almost fit, but never quite locked together. Here we were, two people who'd spent so long playing the parts we thought we were supposed to play, now trying to figure out who we actually were underneath it all. Daniel stood and walked to the window, staring into the darkness beyond. I don't want to keep pretending anymore. I want to figure out who I really am, not who I think I should be. We were talking about things we'd never said out loud before. It felt like we were rebuilding our relationship from the ground up. Only this time it was honest. Daniel was opening up, and in turn, I was starting to open up too. There was something powerful about it, something that made me see my son in a completely new way. Not just as my child, but as his own person, full of complexity and dreams and struggles I'd never fully understood. He was taking ownership of his choices, his emotions, and for the first time in years I felt like he was truly living for himself. It was contagious. I found myself thinking more about what I wanted, about the things I'd set aside for so long. It wasn't just about Daniel anymore. It was about both of us finding our own paths, together but separate. The small things matter. One afternoon after work, I found Daniel in the kitchen, his back to me, humming softly as he made a sandwich. The sound of his voice brought unexpected warmth to my chest. It was like hearing him for the first time, like hearing the son I'd known all along, but in a way that felt brand new. I leaned against the doorframe, watching him, a smile tugging at my lips. You know, you never used to hum when you were younger. What changed? Daniel paused mid-slice and turned to me with a small grin. I guess I've learned to appreciate the little things. You taught me that. I blinked, caught off guard. I taught you that? He nodded. Yeah. I used to think life was all about the big wins, you know? But now I get it. It's the small moments that count. Like this. Just being here with you. That's all I need. My heart swelled. I stepped into the kitchen, my voice barely above a whisper. Daniel, I never knew you felt that way. He shrugged, setting down the knife. It's something I've been figuring out. And honestly, Mom, I think it applies to you too. You don't have to be everything for everyone. You just have to be who you are. That's enough. It struck me then. Daniel wasn't just talking about himself. He was talking about me. He was saying the things I hadn't been able to say to myself, that it was okay for me to stop trying to fill every role I thought I had to. I didn't have to be the perfect mother, the perfect friend, the perfect everything. I just had to be Claire. And that was enough. For the first time in a long time, I felt clarity, like a fog had lifted. I'd spent so much of my life trying to be what others needed. But the truth was, I'd forgotten to live for myself. I'd forgotten what it meant to be me, without all the labels. Finding each other again, I walked over to Daniel and placed my hand on his shoulder. For a moment, neither of us spoke. We didn't need to. The silence between us was comfortable now, no longer heavy with unspoken words. I'm proud of you, Daniel, I said quietly, emotion thick in my voice. I'm so proud of the man you're becoming. He smiled, genuine and heartfelt. And I'm proud of you, Mom, for finally finding your own path. Though, those words hit me harder than I expected. I hadn't realized how much I'd been waiting for him to acknowledge my own growth, my own journey. Hearing him say it, I finally felt seen. Like I could step out from behind the roles I'd been playing for so long. I think we've both come a long way, I said softly, and we still have so much more to discover. Daniel nodded, his eyes reflecting quiet understanding. Yeah. But I'm okay with that, as long as we keep moving forward. In that moment, I realized that change wasn't something to fear. It was something to embrace. Daniel had changed, yes, but so had I. And that change, that growth, it was something beautiful. Something that would make us both stronger, closer, and more connected than we'd ever been before. Rediscovering ourselves. As the days passed, I began to feel lighter. I started making time for myself again, time to read, to paint, to take long walks, to simply breathe. I didn't need anyone's permission to do it, and Daniel? He started discovering who he really was, apart from the expectations he'd been carrying. We didn't have all the answers, but we had each other, and we were both learning how to live for ourselves. It wasn't always easy. There were days when the weight of the past tried to pull us back, when doubts crept in, but we kept moving forward. And that was enough. Sometimes it's the smallest moments that change everything. A conversation in a quiet room, a moment of vulnerability, a realization that you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be yourself. New chapters. Over the following weeks, I noticed subtle shifts in both of us. Daniel began pursuing interests he'd always pushed aside. He signed up for a photography workshop, something he'd mentioned years ago but never acted on. I watched him discover this passion, capturing beauty in ordinary moments. His eye for detail, his patience high. Willingness to see the world from different angles. All of it revealed sides of him I hadn't fully recognized before. For myself, I reconnected with old friends I'd lost touch with over the years. Women I'd known before motherhood consumed my identity, before I became defined solely by my relationship to others. We met for coffee, for walks in the park, for conversations that had nothing to do with children or responsibilities. I remembered what it felt like to laugh freely, to share stories about my own experiences, my own thoughts, without filtering everything through the lens of being someone's mother. One evening, Daniel came home with a photograph he'd taken, a stunning image of sunrise breaking through morning fog, golden light streaming between trees. He handed it to me with a shy smile. I want you to have this. It reminded me of something you said once about how every day is a chance to begin again. I held the photograph, tears welling in my eyes. I don't remember saying that, but it's beautiful. You said it during one of your rough patches, when everything felt overwhelming. I was probably 15 or 16. You didn't know I was listening, but those words stayed with me. The realization that my son had been paying attention, even when I thought I was failing, even when I felt most inadequate, moved me deeply. We influence each other in ways we don't always recognize, in moments we don't always remember. Daniel, I said softly, have I ever told you that being your mother has been the greatest privilege of my life? Not because of what you've accomplished or who you've become, but simply because you. He smiled, his eyes glistening. You're telling me now. And that's what matters. Building new connections. As autumn shifted into winter, our home took on a different atmosphere. It was no longer just a place where I maintained order and ensured EV. Arione's needs were met. It became a space where two people were learning to coexist authentically, supporting each other's growth while pursuing their own paths. Daniel began dating someone, a thoughtful young woman named Emma who shared his passion for photography. I watched him navigate this relationship with a maturity that surprised me, communicating openly, setting boundaries, being vulnerable. He was applying the lessons we'd both learned about authenticity and self-awareness. And I started dating too. After years of believing that chapter of my life had closed, I met Richard at a community art class. He was kind, patient, genuinely interested in knowing who I was beyond any role I played. Our relationship progressed, slowly, carefully, built on mutual respect and genuine connection. Daniel was supportive in ways that touched me deeply. He didn't interrogate or judge. He simply expressed happiness that I was rediscovering this part of myself. One Sunday afternoon, the four of us had dinner together. Daniel, Emma, Richard, and myself. It was relaxed, filled with laughter and easy conversation. At one point, I looked around the table and felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. This was family in a new form, not bound by traditional definitions, but connected by genuine care and respect. Full circle, after Emma and Richard left, Daniel and I sat together on the porch, wrapped in blankets against the chill, watching stars emerge in the darkening sky. "Mom," he said quietly, "do you remember that night when everything changed? When we both finally stopped pretending?" I nodded. "I think about it often. I'm grateful for that night," he continued. "I'm grateful you were brave enough to be honest with me, to show me that it's okay to be uncertain, to be searching. I was terrified that night," I admitted. terrified that being honest would damage our relationship. That you'd see me as weak or inadequate. But it did the opposite, didn't it? He said, turning to look at me. It made everything stronger because it was real. Yes, I said softly. It made everything real. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, and I reflected on the journey we'd both taken. It hadn't been about dramatic transformations or sudden revelations. It had been about small, consistent steps toward authenticity, about choosing honesty over comfort, about accepting imperfection as part of being human. Daniel spoke again, his voice thoughtful. I've been thinking about the future lately, about what I want to build with my life, and I realized that the most important thing you taught me wasn't about achievement or success. It was about being true to myself, about living with integrity. That means everything to me, I said, my voice catching slightly. But I also want you to know that you taught me too, Daniel. You taught me that it's never too late to rediscover yourself, that growth doesn't have an expiration date. He smiled, that warm, genuine smile that had become more frequent in recent months. We taught each other, Mom. That's what makes it beautiful. The gift we gave each other. As winter deepened and the year drew to a close, I found myself reflecting on everything that had changed. The woman I had been, exhausted, depleted, living for everyone except herself, felt like a distant memory. I wasn't perfect now. I still had doubts, still struggled with old patterns, but I was present in my own life in a way I hadn't been for years. Daniel had blossomed into someone I deeply admired, not because he'd achieved specific milestones, but because he was genuinely himself, navigating life with thoughtfulness and authenticity. Our relationship had evolved into something richer than I could have imagined, built on mutual respect and genuine understanding rather than obligation and role-playing. One evening, as I prepared for bed, I found a note Daniel had left on my nightstand. Simple, just a few lines in his distinctive handwriting. Mom, thank you for having the courage to change. Thank you for showing me that becoming who we're meant to be is a lifelong journey, not a destination. I'm proud to walk this path alongside you. Love always, Daniel. I held the note against my heart, tears streaming down my face, not tears of sadness, but of profound gratitude. This was the gift we had given each other. Permission to be imperfect, to be evolving, to be authentically ourselves. The journey wasn't finished. There would be more challenges, more moments of uncertainty, more opportunities for growth. But we were no longer afraid of them. We had learned that transformation isn't about becoming someone different. It's about becoming more fully who you already are. That night, I slept peacefully, knowing that whatever came next, I would face it as Claire. Not just as a mother, not just as a friend or partner, but as a complete person, worthy and whole, exactly as I was. And that was the greatest gift of all. Not the absence of struggle, but the presence of authenticity. Not perfection, but truth. Not the end of our journey, but the beautiful, continuing story of two people learning to live fully, honestly, and courageously. Together yet separate. Connected yet independent. Forever changed by the moment we chose to stop pretending and start living.